And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley. We got a great guest for you here coming up shortly. Just want to make sure that you know that we are working on trying to blow that YouTube channel up. We're working on getting to 1,000 subscribers. We got all the watch hours we need. So please like, share, and review. It's been a while since I've got a review on Apple Podcast. I was listening to my friend Jay's Hard Parking podcast, and he was like, yeah, it's been a year since I've had a review. So I looked at mine, kind of the same thing. If you would please review it, and then if you want to DM me on social media, wherever you follow me, I'll send you a couple stickers. Our guest today is Nancy Hamlin. I met her from TikTok, and she has a wealth of things that she has done, and it's pretty interesting, pretty cool. She's currently a Cedar Fair Senior Vice President in Park Resale. Let's get into this. Nancy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's interesting, all the people that I meet through the social media aspects of my life. You know, I think that you kind of gravitate towards people who kind of have like-minded aspirations and things like that. So it's awesome to, get to talk to you.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I'm looking over at this bio that you sent me, and I looked it over last week when you sent it to me, and I was just like, man, there's a lot to you to unpack.
It sure is. Well, currently I work with theme parks and water parks. So there are 13 parks, and in-park resale means that once you walk into the park, if you open your wallet, if you buy food or beverage or merchandise or play games, then that is my department. So pretty interesting and fun. Our stock symbol is fun too. So, but I, was in stadiums and arenas and restaurant business. So started my career at 16 and at McDonald's in food and beverage, and never turned back from there.
It's funny because I always talk about McDonald's as one of the things. The show is called Shaping Success, and success is generated by you. It can be whatever you want. And I've often said that you can be successful working at McDonald's. That's up to you. That's what you choose. And it's great that you started there, because you kind of get the idea of, do I want to do that? Because there are some people who have really successful careers working at McDonald's. But obviously you moved on. And so tell us how you kind of got, what was the next steps after McDonald's, and what'd you do from there?
Sure. Well, I was working at McDonald's, and I decided, I want to be in the business. So I was looking at colleges, and I was probably 17 and a half, and a manager there, I wish I could remember his name, because at the time I didn't realize how important it would be, but he was offering me a position to not go to college and to become a manager. And, it was a viable question, because that's what I want to do with my life. So we walked in the parking lot, and he did the sales pitch. And then I asked him, I said, what is your honest opinion for me? What do you think I should do? Should I take this job, or should I go to college? Because that's what I'm going to study anyway. And he said, go to college, and don't ever tell anyone inside I told you that. And so I consider him my first work mentor, right? He made a decision that was not in his best interest, but was in mine. And I was too young at the time to realize how impactful that would be. But that's what changed. And then I went to college and, continued to do different jobs from there, and got bigger scale. The job before this one was stadiums and arenas. I've done 3 Super Bowls and, NASCAR and golf and all sorts of logistics events. I figured out sometime along the way that things that are complicated and require logistics is really where my heart is and my skill set is. So it's the same thing here with Cedar Fair.
So you're a really good organizer. It sounds like you know how to put things in place and where they need to go, right?
Yes. It takes that. If you're going to feed 70,000 people or 200,000 people in a NASCAR race, it takes a lot of planning and organization, and that's what I gravitate to.
Have you met some pretty cool people along the way? I feel like if you've done these things and there's these big events, you either don't have time to meet those people, or you get a chance to meet some cool people.
You do meet people. I had Sammy Hagar made me a margarita.
Oh, that's awesome.
We were doing his Wabarita, his tequila, and we had his picture on a shaker, and he came to Minneapolis and to our GM meeting, and he made us all margaritas, and then we went bowling randomly on a Tuesday night in Minneapolis. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of people, which is great. And in the stadium arena business, you're working, but you can hear every concert.
Uh-huh.
So I've also attended, so to speak, almost any kind of music you'd imagine.
That sounds like so much fun, just being able to just get to take part in any of that. And it just sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Super Bowl is probably the best thing, hardest thing before I raise money, which we'll probably talk about, that I've ever done. So,
let's talk about how that, so you basically kind of plan the whole Super Bowl, or how does that work? Tell us a little bit about that, like what you did with that.
So I went to the 2005 Super Bowl. Our company did part of the array or part of the stadium there. So I worked that one. And then 2006 in Detroit was my building. So all the food and beverage in the building was being run by my team and I. And then that was Super Bowl 40. And then Super Bowl 50, I was in my current job, and we share a parking lot with Levi Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the StubHub party and we did the tailgate party. So I've been able to work on 3 Super Bowls, which the scale of that event is just amazing.
You said you're next to Levi Stadium, so you're actually in California, right?
One of our parks is.
Oh, what are your parks? Okay.
I'm in Charlotte, but we're based, my office is in Charlotte, but we have a park that's connected to the stadium there. So after I left the stadium arena business, I never thought I'd work another Super Bowl, and I got the opportunity to do another one. So
yeah, that's amazing. Like you said, like you didn't really think that it was going to happen again because you're not doing that, and then all of a sudden you get right back in it. And it's like kind of like your wheelhouse because you've already done it a couple times.
Yeah, it's funny is during the planning of the 2006 Super Bowl, there were times I thought I'm never going to watch another Super Bowl because it's hard.
Yeah,
and then now I hate watching the Super Bowl because I'm not there, because it is such an amazing event to be involved with. So I always have FOMO when I watch.
Yeah, well, that stadium, I was born there, but I haven't ever been to. Well, I went to Candlestick Park when they used to play at Candlestick Park to watch a Giants game, but I've never seen a professional football game other than at the Oakland Coliseum. And it's just like, it's amazing the things that they do to get that stuff going. I mean, if you're in charge of all the food and beverage, and I guarantee you there's like twice as many people drinking at the Super Bowl as there is at, and eating and all that stuff. It's one of those things, you take that in and then you have a higher class of people, right? Because not everyone can afford to go to the Super Bowl.
Right. But people just spend so much more money. Even in the people who don't have as much money, it's a once in a lifetime experience.
Right.
So they come in and they want to buy everything, and they want to, get the shirt and, everything. So It is such an intense event, which it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I bought a jersey at a game one time and I was just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done, but I still have it, because there's a $200 jersey at the game and you can go get one online for like $100. It's like, we just paid double as soon as you walk into the stadium.
You got it from right there.
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty amazing what people will pay, but it is, like you said, it's a once in a lifetime deal. So that's super cool. So you said you kind of run theme parks, basically, is what you do. What are some of the theme parks that you work with?
You probably heard of Cedar Point, Knott's Berry Farm, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Canada's Wonderland. We all have our own names because each park has its own identity. But they're from Canada to Texas and all over the U.S. And then we bought the Schlitterbahn water parks, 2 of them in Texas in 2018. So those are the only strictly water parks, although most of our parks have water parks as well. So completely different style of business. However, it's still the seasonality and you go from not being open to having 50,000 people in the park. So it's similar to the setup of a stadium arena business. So from a work standpoint, it's very similar, but different times of year and, families.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially if you're in a place where they have seasons, like I live in Idaho and it's snowing. There's snow outside right now, which is crazy. There's no way no one's going to a water park right now, but we have that water park that opens up right in the beginning of summer and closes down here.
Yeah, it's such a short season to capture and to hire people and, to be able to staff a location like that that's only open. Like when we work NASCAR, you'd be staffing for 7 or 8 days a year. And it's pretty challenging to do that. So there are similar challenges in this business, but, that's what makes me, have the experience and makes me good at it.
You know how to find those people and make them work.
Yeah. and do those temporary solutions for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit. One of the other things that was really cool, because I feel like this started coming up. I started selling some sweatshirts for a guy on TikTok who's a friend of mine, and I started looking into, like, I'm trying to find with this podcast. It's not huge, it's not big. It's something though that I want to be able to give back to people. I've always thought about it. It's always been kind of on my heart. But you got to figure out, first of all, I got to make money, and I got to figure out a way to be able to donate money that I make if I make it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to sell him. He's trying to get. He's had some very poor dental work over the time of his life and ended up needing dentures, but he can't afford them because they're super expensive. So I was like, well, I'll sell some sweatshirts and then I'll donate some of the proceeds to that. And then I saw that you have some fundraising, philanthropic stuff going on here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I also saw there was something in here. Where did it go? Tell me about, was it the Leukemia Foundation Person of the Year or something like that?
Yeah. So in 2012, I wanted to run my second marathon, and I wanted to do it for a cause. So I signed up with Team in Training, which is part of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I ran, a marathon, had coaching and training, and met people. And I don't think I realized at the time I was looking for a group of people who understood grief. I'd lost 2 sisters and my mother, and I went to the first training run on Saturday, and on Tuesday my father died. So for that 4 months, I had somewhere to be. I had, training to do. We would do a mission moment every Saturday morning. And every Saturday morning I cried, but this time it wasn't just for me. It was for someone else too.
Right.
So I raised some money, and over the next, 4 or 5 years or so, I was involved and did probably 4 or 5 more events, met a lot of people. I don't have a direct blood cancer connection, but certainly I have a connection with loss and grief. And I had been asked to do something that was called Man, Woman of the Year many times. And I won't let anyone take my picture, which is a whole nother story. But
no, it's not. I'm there. I'm the same way. Hard to believe when you're on camera, right?
I know, right? And so I said no many times. At some point, you realize when you can, you should. And I knew I had the propensity to raise a lot of money. So I said yes, and going into 2019. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it big. And the most money anybody had raised in 90 cities in 30 years was $728,000.
That's a lot.
So I built a team and said, we're going to beat it. And if someone else beats us, that's great. We used a Steve Prefontaine quote that said, if you can't win your race, let the guy in front of you, make sure the guy in front of you breaks a record. So we set out and we raised $891,806, which at the time was the most, ever raised. Fortunately, it's been beaten now by a couple people, and I'm on the board of directors in Charlotte for LLS. I'm on a national board. I'm up to probably about $1.2 million now. The record somewhere in San Antonio a couple years ago, somebody raised $2.2 million, and there's something called the All-Star, and at some point I'm coming back for that number. Yeah. But we're here till there's a cure, and it's a life-changing experience. Quite honestly, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding thing. And, as you lose people, you have to find something to do with it, right? And, grief brought me to LLS, which brought me to a family, which brought me to giving back. And I'm an exponentially better person than I was before I lost people, which is, it's not that I wasn't a good person, but I'm more intentional and I'm kinder and I'm more authentic and I reach out and I do things. And it's because tomorrow's not promised, and you don't learn that until you lose people.
Right.
But it has, it's as important, and I spend probably as much time on it as I do my real job. But it gives me back a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like giving without like expecting anything in return always makes everything seem like it's so much better. That intention, that's amazing. I mean, first of all, you ran a marathon. I mean, no thanks. So more power to you for that. But, raising the money is kind of like, that's a great thing. You've done a couple things. One, you proved that you could raise the money. And 2, prove to yourself that you can stay dedicated to going and doing something that I have no desire to do. I mean, I have no problem raising the money, but I'm not running a marathon. Yeah. That's to me, that's a little bit too much work. My wife likes to run, and I'll pass. I think I'm on record as saying, as if a bear chased me down, I'd lay down and let him eat me. I'm done.
Yeah. I like to hate to run. I don't think runners even ever really like to run. We just like to finish running. But,
Right. Exactly. That's I had a guest on that talked to me. I've been working out every day for like today's 75 days. It's something that I try to make this change in my life with. And Robert Watson, who I interviewed, I don't know, probably 2 months ago, had said, I go, why do you run every day? Because he posts on TikTok every single day about running. And I'm like, why do you run every day? And he goes, because I hate it. I'm like, what?
I know. I love that. I watched that one. I loved what he said.
But I'm like, why do you do it if you hate it? And he was like, because I figure if I can do something that I hate every morning before I get up, I can get through the rest of the day. And it just makes so much sense. I mean,
It really does.
yeah, I hate, like, I was a PE teacher before this, what I do now, and I hated running. I mean, I'd like playing sports. I like the activity, but I cannot stand to run. And I can understand why. Like, and Robert basically says, because punishment, every time you do anything, you punish someone with running, or, like as a teacher, I would do that. It's like, all right, go run a lap. You don't want to pay attention, go run a lap, or go do push-ups, or, and then we engrave that in our mind that it's just punishment and it's not fun. And I don't know, I'm not a fan. But besides that, sorry to go off on that tangent. I mean, there's just some amazing things with this fundraising. How do you talk about how you kind of set that up? What did you do to do that? And also the Prefontaine quote, gold.
Right. I know. Right. Well, I think that when you're trying to do something at scale, I'd raised money when I'd done marathons before, but this one was going to be such larger scale that you have to tell everybody you're going to do it. Right. I kept saying, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm asking big. I went to companies. My company was gracious enough to let me work with our vendors and ask big, because I was running really as a Cedar Fair executive. And I really didn't take no. I had some one company say, hey, I don't think we can help. And I said, well, that's probably not going to work for me. And, they came back for more. But, it's different than negotiating a business because you're trying to cure cancer. So I was sharing this deeply personal story about myself with people that I work with and work relationships. And so it changed the dynamic for me. But it's hard for people to say no because everybody wants a cure for cancer. So right. Even though it's uncomfortable when you start asking, it becomes very comfortable. And with blood cancer, every 3 minutes someone's diagnosed, and 1/3 of those don't make it past 5 years past diagnosis. So while I didn't have a blood cancer connection, so many people I would ask had one. Mm-hmm. One company donated $75,000 that we work with. Well, their, national salesperson had died. It was brain cancer, but it just died of brain cancer. And the blood cancer research is good for all cancers because you can't get access to tumors, but you can get access to blood. So they can constantly be testing and developing things. So many of the treatments that come out of LLS work for other cancers. So people are much, it's just easier, but you have to not be afraid and you have to not take no, you have to be relentless. And, we weren't going to raise that kind of money if I wasn't living and breathing it. And everyone I met, I asked for money.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the hardest part, right? The asking is always the hardest part, because why would they do this? Why would someone want to help me? Why would someone want to help? And like, you have to give them a reason to want to do it. And I have a feeling that people like you. So that also helps, right?
You do. You have to have relationships, and people want to line up behind you. You have to be able to build a team. You have to get nominated to even run. And so, yeah, I think, I used to go to Orange Theory Fitness. It was a gym I went to, and the owner, I was talking to him, and he asked me why I hadn't asked him for a donation. And I was using his studio to have a fundraising class. And in my mind, I had already asked him for help because I asked him for a studio. And so he wrote me a check, and I didn't look at it at the time. And I left. It was a $500 check. And I realized that even though I thought I asked him, I actually hadn't asked him. And so, it was a good lesson for me that here I was trying to raise all this money, and I asked him for help. So I thought check, but he gave me another $500. So even along the way, you learn lessons of not being, tenacious enough. I went to buy a car, and my friend said, don't forget to get a donation. And so I've never negotiated when I purchased anything before, but I said, I'm not leaving until I get a donation. So it's just your whole mind process,
Yeah. You have to think outside the box. It sounds like I never even really thought about it that way. It's like there is, because like I'm a big connector, right? That's my thing. Like I want to meet as many people as I possibly can and talk to them like this and have a conversation and just know that, you know, you have something to offer. And if they don't know that, if you don't show them what you can do, then you'll never get the opportunity.
Right. And it's, you know, those connections I have now with people. Now I try to nominate people in Charlotte, but pretty much everyone I know has been nominated. So now I'm starting to nominate people in other markets because I've worked in all states. So the good friend of mine ran in Nashville last year, and he won. And I nominated somebody in California this year going into 23, and he's going to win, I'm sure, because he's got so many connections. So, and all those people, the gentleman in Nashville said, you know, he's very busy. He said, but you're busy too, and you did it. So I got to do it. So, you know, it's just sometimes connecting and having that influence. And it's hard to say no when somebody's asking you to help in the fight for cancer. You know?
Right. Well, and I mean, the thing that's crazy about it too is it's not like you're just like, you know, anyone can donate a little bit of money. You know, here's $100, here's, you know, $10, here's whatever. This is what I have, but we're talking like almost over $1 million. I mean, that's a big chunk. That goes a long way in the fight, you know.
Yeah. The impact is, you know, the night of the event, I was just focused on the finish line. And then that night, all these strangers were coming up to me. I remember this woman, her name's Elizabeth, and she was coming up and telling me about her daughter's fight with cancer. And, you know, she's made it through, but she was talking to me and she was crying and she was thanking me. And it was the first time I stopped to think that money is going to help people and what it means to people, because you're just focused on the race and the, you know, finishing it. But so really afterwards is when you feel all that.
Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, that's got to be such a good feeling to know that you're helping that many people, but getting through the race is always important as well. I've read a lot of David Goggins, and you listen to like him. Like, I mean, a marathon's way out of my realm. Like, I have a bad knee. Like I have a new knee I got last year. It's like probably about a year old actually. But I've never really been a very good runner, but I've had pretty bad genetics in that. And it's just like, I'm sitting here listening to him talk to me about running on broken legs. And I'm like, I'm weak.
No.
It's amazing what they're doing. I mean, like you think about a marathon's like 26 miles, right? So, or more than that, but a little bit over 26. I don't know the math because I don't do it, but I know it's 26.2. There we go. I knew it was a little bit over. And you probably remember every 26.2 miles of that run.
You do.
Yeah. But he was raising, you know, in his book, he talks about raising money he does like the ultra marathons. And I'm like, man, dude, you're nuts. I am not doing that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even do the first one. And now you're talking about like these 24-hour races where you're, no.
I know. It's impressive, but yeah.
But it's a lot of mind over matter. Just like anything you do, it's the biggest barrier is right between your two ears, because it's telling you that you can't, and telling you that you're tired, and telling you that you're sore. And then you're just like, I'm not pushing anymore. And I think that's the biggest struggle with most people.
Yeah, your body will do it. Your mind has to control it.
Yep, exactly. So you've done so much. I mean, it's amazing the things that you've done, and I'm really glad for this conversation, because I think it's just, you're killing it. So what's next though? Like I know that people like you that are doing these types of things do not stop. Like someone said, do you look at like success as the end of the goal, right? So like, are you done when you've reached that goal? You don't seem like the type of person who's done. So what's next?
And I never know what's going to come next, because it just kind of finds me. Of course, the work with LLS will continue. I am now working with our internal charity arm of our organization, and I'm heading that up. I think I'm going to make a big impact in how we can raise funds and help families and kids, and that's where we're about. But I'm not sure what else is next, and it tends to find me. Like when the first marathon found me, it just found me, and then the other things that I've done just materialized. So I think I'm always looking, and I am always trying to find out what I can do. I was asked a question in a meeting recently. What do you want to do that you're afraid to do? And there's probably 20 people who answered it. When it came to me, I said, I don't have an answer, because there are things like I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not going to jump out of an airplane. but there isn't anything I want to do that I'm afraid of. And it's because I've done things like this that, in theory scared me, but then I did them, or I did or I didn't. So I'm not afraid, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But I don't know I'm not sure what's going to come, but there will definitely be something.
If someone offered to give you a really big donation, would you jump out in an airplane?
Oh yeah, it had to be really big, but because I'm really afraid, but I would do it. I mean, we're trying to save lives. Yeah, it would have to be really big.
Yeah, I could jump out of an airplane. I've never done it before, but I'm pretty sure I could do it because one of my things, I'm a big Superman fan, and that would be the closest thing to being Superman. I feel like jumping out of an airplane, I'm flying.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it's, I appreciate you reaching out because like one of the things that I've decided with this podcast, and not to say that you're not qualified to be on here, but I think that with this, and you are and that's why I said that, because like your list of things that you do is like really what I want people to see. I want them to understand that no matter what you're doing, it was great. The McDonald's thing in the beginning was just great to me. It's like you started out at McDonald's, and that guy did his job, but then also told you to go against the grain. And it's a good thing you don't know his name because he's probably still working there, and you don't want him to get in trouble. But
yeah.
It's just amazing because people who are successful are right around us. And we always look for these people who are like super famous, right? That's always I'd love to have Gary Vee on. I'd love to have Lewis Howes on. I'd love to talk Tony Robbins. But the people who are inspiring are the people like you, the people who are doing the actual work behind the scenes, and no one really knows because they don't push it out there like that. They're not, it's a great thing that you're doing. And I really appreciate it.
There's people everywhere, right? There's so many people to be inspired by, especially in tough times, right?
And that's the hard thing is like they don't hype that, right? People don't hype the things that you're doing. You have to do it yourself, and they're not. This is not something that is going to be on the national news, right? But you've done big things, and that's the unfortunate thing. It's like they're showing everyone the bad things that are happening, but they're not showing the good people who are doing the good things. So I'm glad to be able to share your story with people.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anywhere, so if anyone wants to reach out to you or donate or do anything on anything that you're doing, is there a way to find you? I found you on TikTok, so that's where I know you from.
Yes. I'd say probably the biggest is LinkedIn. And I don't have a link right now, but I will add a link for LLS because I'm always happy to take donations for LLS too. So I'm on, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all those places.
So are you on there for fun, or is it a lot of it for work?
So everything but TikTok is work. Well, Facebook's a little bit of both. It's fundraising and work. Oh. And most of the people, like the LinkedIn people, don't know about TikTok until now.
Sorry, I outed you.
No, it's okay. TikTok is decidedly not work, but it's fun, right?
Yeah. Oh no, and that's the funny thing is that's where I found my biggest audience, but it doesn't really, what's going on with it right now is kind of a mess. So we'll see what happens, see where that goes. I'm kind of pushing more towards YouTube because it seems like that's going to be a better avenue, or I'm getting the same type of like analytics from YouTube that I'm getting from TikTok now. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. TikTok for me is a little bit about face my fear, right? Because I won't let them take my picture. Now I can film 100 and post one, but still I'm doing something, right? So that's why I started doing it. And then it's, it's fun.
Let's talk a little bit about that picture thing, because I feel the same way. What is the issue with that? Like, are you, like, for me, it's just self-conscious. That's really.
Yeah. I hate seeing pictures of myself. I tell people it's because I was the youngest of 7 kids. And by the time I was around, nobody took any pictures. So I, make light of it that I didn't grow up having my picture taken, but I hate pictures of myself. So,
Yeah. Well, you sent me some, and you look like you do fine, but I'm assuming that you probably went through 1,000 of them before you said that this one's an approval.
I did.
That's what I do. Same thing.
Exactly. Edited and approved pictures, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I hope to make sure that you send me that link in an email too, and I'll put it on the show notes so everyone can find that as well. But I'd love to help out with that, getting people, to see that, because I think that it's a great thing that you're doing, as well as all your other cool things that you did.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, everyone. Well, that is the end of the show. Such a great interview. There's so much to unpack there. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Like I said, if you could please like, share, and review on Apple Podcast, help me to grow the show, because you know what? Without you, there's no me. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.